Welcome to the Dan Dillman Live Podcast, where we question the history and mysteries of the past while exploring people and stories from around the world. Join us as we delve into everything from hidden treasures and ancient secrets to the unexplained phenomena capturing our imaginations. All right, good evening from around the world. My name is Dan Dillman, and we are live with my good friend, Terry Carter. Terry, my brother, thank you so much for being on the show tonight.
Hey, Dan, thanks for having me on.
Yep. I appreciate you. I know you're out there. You're hustling and bustling, and a man of the world, traveling everywhere. So you're probably in some hotel room right now, doing this interview.
I'm in Winnemucca, Nevada right now, and I'm from Utah, and right now I'm in Winnemucca, Nevada. So.
Wow, man. Well, I want to give folks a few minutes to possibly join us and get on here, but I'm also not going to wait too long. If you're watching out there and you end up having a question tonight for Terry, put a Q in the comments, and then we will know that you've got a question for us. Hopefully the audio sounds fabulous. We've sorted that out a few weeks ago to where there should be no delays. And we are live with world famous, amazing treasure hunter, explorer, keeper of ancient records, really keeper of other people's stories as well too, Terry Carter. And, I'm just going to get right to it, Terry. I want to know something I don't think anyone's ever asked you before. What is your favorite movie?
So first off, before I answer that, I'm not world famous. I know a lot of world famous people like you, and that's my claim to fame. Is I just know a lot of great people, but my favorite movie, I think when Raiders of the Lost Ark first came out, that was my all-time favorite, and all them treasure hunting shows like that, with Nicolas Cage and that, man. I love the treasure hunting movies. So.
Yeah, well, me too. I'm right there with you. Raiders of the Lost Ark was totally awesome. And for me as a kid, when I saw the big ball rolling out, and it almost got Harrison Ford, as a kid, I already, knew about Freddie Crystal's adventure and what had happened to them. So I was, going, man, this is real life, man. This is real life. So it was super cool. Goonies, though, is another one of my favorites. Have you ever watched Goonies?
Goonies. Yeah, that is a great show. Yeah, there's a lot of great ones, Joe. Romancing the Stone. I can't think of them all, but there's a lot of great ones out there, man. That all them treasure hunting movies I really liked.
Yep. Awesome. All right, I'm going to ask you this. Butch Cassidy's gang, we got Kurt. Kurt has joined us live. Kirk Melton. I know you know Kurt.
Kurt, how you doing, Kurt?
And he just asked a question. He said, Butch Cassidy's gang robbed a bank in Winnemucca, Nevada in 1900 for like $40K.
I heard that they did pull off a robbery out here, but I don't know that much about it. But I do know that they did rob a bank out here.
Well, that is awesome. Maybe you can find the stashed cash, and put it in there. So
There's a lot of gold mines out here. A lot of them. I've done some work out here in these gold mines out here, and I remember hearing a story that somebody stole the gold bar from one of these mines. And these mines, their typical gold bars are like 80 pounds, and they're not pure gold, but they are like 90 or 89, 90% pure. Well, somebody stole one and then they hid it. And then years later, they took it into a pawn shop here and they take a sample of all these golds. Every time they make a pour, they take a sample. All this gold has a fingerprint of where it comes from, and they take a sample. And when they went to pawn an 80-pound gold bar to a pawn star, man, they got nabbed.
Oh, that is crazy. Well, they're gonna have to melt that gold down again then, and throw some other stuff inside of it. How do you steal an 80-pound gold bar? Who wasn't watching all the gold bars?
Yeah, good question. Good question. It had to be somebody on the inside that was working in the smelter and doing that. It had to be somebody like that. They keep a tight rein on that stuff with the security and all that, the cameras and checks and double checks. But somehow somebody figured out how to do it. I heard and
Wow. We've got
but they didn't get away with it though.
obviously not. They were busted. Aaron's Energy 313 says, "Hey, Dan and Terry, been following Terry for many years."
No wonder I like you. Thank you.
All right, so I asked you your favorite movie. These are things that that no one's probably ever asked you. So, you have a favorite TV show, whether it be an old show or a new show?
I don't watch a whole lot of TV anymore, but back when I did, way back then, I liked the Fonz, Gilligan's Island, Hogan's Heroes, shows like that, man. I really loved.
Oh man, those are great shows.
Happy Days, yeah.
Yeah. And now the last one, and then we'll move on to what people would want to hear about. But what's your favorite food, Terry?
Mexican. I love Mexican restaurants. Love Mexican.
Man, that's why I like you so much, man, because that's it.
Me and you, Dan.
Yep, I can eat Mexican and barbecue every night. Mexican preferable, and if it's barbecued Mexican, like fresh,
that's even better, huh?
Carne asada and all that stuff, absolutely. All right, so I've asked you these questions that no one's ever asked before. I want it to be the first.
You're the first.
So, talk to me about your origin story. I mean, how did you get started, and how old were you?
So, the bug first hit me. I was just a kid. I can remember I was probably in kindergarten, first grade, and I remember seeing a documentary or some kind of a show. It was a long time ago. It was about these guys that was finding treasures off the coast of Florida. And this was in the 60s. When I seen this, and that got me hooked. And I thought, I'm gonna learn how to scuba dive, and I'm gonna go find me some of this Spanish treasure. But then that was the end of it. I never did any more with it. But when I went to work on a power plant out in Vernal, Utah, when they was building it in the early 80s. And that's when I learned about the Lost Roads mine, the Spanish treasures in the Uinta Mountains. I had no clue about that before that. And I was in my early 20s. And one of the guys I worked with, he had a book on the Lost Roads mine. His family used to hunt for the Lost Roads mine. And so he was telling me a lot of stories and some of the things that was written in the books, and some of the things they was telling me about was I used to hunt deer and elk in them areas. So I knew the areas they was talking about, and I'd seen some of the things they was talking about. Had no clue it had to deal with Spanish, So I loved the outdoors anyway. That's why I loved hunting and fishing and stuff. So it was just an excuse for me to get out in the outdoors. Well, now I had even another excuse to get me out of the outdoors even more. I just loved being out in the mountains, and so it just I instantly got hooked because it was just another excuse for me to be out in the mountains. So that's how I got started.
Wow. How old were you then? Around how old were you then?
I was in my early 20s, maybe 22, 23, something like that, maybe.
Man, that is awesome. And did you start metal?
It was in the early 80s, and metal detecting, I didn't have a metal detector. My wife bought me my first metal detector before we was even married. She bought me a metal detector, and it was an old cheap white. It was one mode. It was all metal, and it had a small coil, and so I had to dig everything. But because I had to dig everything, man, I found a lot of interesting things.
Wow. And what was one of the first things that Terry Carter ever discovered?
One of the first things I found with my metal detector of any significance to me, I metal detect mostly in the mountains, and there's you're not going to find a lot of stuff up in the mountains except for a lot of bullet brass. There is lead and bullet brass. I call them like the pull tabs in the cities and the beaches. Instead of finding pull tabs, you find lead and brass. But one of the first things I found was I found a tree that was dead, and it had some markings on it. It had 21 slash marks on it. and on the back side of it had some symbols on it. And I thought, well, this must mean that 21 paces this direction, there's going to be a treasure buried. So I took 21 paces, and it led up on this hillside that wasn't real steep, maybe like a 25-degree or something like that. And there was a big rock right there where where I figured there had to be something. So I tried moving it myself, and I couldn't. So I went and got my brother, and we dug under it. We got a big log and pried under it, and we threw rocks under it. We're not going to blow up, are we?
Sorry. That was, national emergency. I can't believe this phone wasn't turned off. I apologize.
So we finally got this big boulder to move out of the way, and I put my metal detector down there, and it started going off crazy. And I thought, that's it, man. I found the mother lode. My heart started, And so I dug down there, and I found a bunch of old square nails and old burned up wood. And I'm thinking, what's square nails and burned up wood doing on this hillside, So I went up the hill a little bit higher and dug down just to see, and dug down to the same level and started hitting more old square nails and wood. So I go down to the bottom, and then I could see it. There was just barely popping out of the ground a row of rocks where you could see that there used to be a cabin that was cut into the side of the mountain. And it was a fairly big. It wasn't one of these little cabins, and it had to have been rocks with wooden roofs. But somebody had gone in there and leveled that whole hillside out, rolled this big boulder in there so that you couldn't tell anything had been there, And I surmised that maybe it was a Spanish mission, and the Indians did that. They burned it down, hid it up, covered it up so that nobody could tell anything was in there, but you could still faintly see the row of rocks on the bottom part of it. So I started detecting in the flat, and the first thing I found was an iron arrowhead, the inside clapper to a bell, a musket ball. What else did I find? Some other things there I can't remember, but that was in the mountains. The first kind of interesting things that I'd found. I've found a few other interesting things. I never have found what I'm looking for. I'm looking for Spanish gold bars. 80-pound Spanish gold bars. Never have found one of them yet, but I've.
Well, the journey's not over, brother. The journey's not over.
No, the journey's not over.
So what are some other things that you've discovered that are notable, to you?
For finding with a metal detector,
sure.
I do these shows for people with metal detectors, and they're out all the time, metal detecting parks, old battlefields, all stuff like that. When I do a metal detecting, I'm doing 2 boxes. I'm doing my metal detecting, and I'm in areas where I'm not expecting to find, things. I'm looking for evidences of the Spaniards, So I don't find as much as some of these guys are finding the old coins, But one time I remember I went to Cozumel, Mexico, and I was going scuba diving, and I took in an underwater metal detector, and I was going to go find me a sunken Spanish galleon. I didn't know if there was any there or not, but I was going to find me one, and I took it out on the boat with me with the dive master, and the dive master's, whoa, man, you can't have this out here. This is a national park. You can't be detected. Da, 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 da. So I never even got to use it. But while we was scuba diving, but our last night there, we flew back into Cancun. And we was going to fly out from Cancun in the morning. And my cousin says, man, get your detector out. Let's go on the beach and see what we can find. And it was late at night. So I took my detector and just was in about a foot of water. And the very first thing I found was a 1-carat diamond ring, and I had it resized and gave it to my wife. And she was happy about that. She says, if you're gonna go without me on these trips and bring me home prizes like this, you can go all you want, as long as you bring me home prizes like this.
That's right. And she made a heavens of an investment with that metal detector for you to, bringing her home diamonds. My goodness. Yeah.
That was I'd upgraded from there, and so I had an underwater detector then that I'd taken on that trip. But yeah, I found another time we was looking for a robbery, a train robbery, where we speculated that a guy hid the robber hid the stash at an old outlaw cabin they had in the middle of nowhere, and we tracked down where we found some old surveyor lines where an old surveyor in the 1800s mentioned that there was an old cabin in this area. So we plotted it, and Jim Ferriello he coordinated where we had it and figured out where the GPS, and we went into the area, and if you knew the cabin was there and you looked real hard, you could kind of see a telltale sign that there was there. If you didn't know, you wouldn't know that there was ever a cabin there. But we started metal detecting there, and the first thing I found there was an old $50. I think it was 1887. I don't remember, but to find something
Wow.
like that in the middle, we didn't find no train robbery full of 60,000 in gold coins, but that was pretty cool to find that. But
Yeah,
but
but
I
I'm
don't
sure.
yeah,
Sorry.
I don't find a lot because of where I'm hunting and what I'm hunting for,
I
But
imagine when you found that half silver dollar, you still told yourself possibly there's a chest full of these around here, right?
yeah, we looked over, and that was we found some old tax tokens and things like that. A lot of old brass and things like that, And I find a lot of things that are cool that tell kind of a history. Old 45, 70 cavalry cartridges and things like that. Musket balls and things, but never the gold bars like I want to find.
Right, right. Aaron's got a question for you, and I'll put it on the screen. But she says, "Can you ask Terry if there's any new information on the Colorado Cave of Mysteries? Also, where does he think they originated from?"
There's nothing new on that. So the guy that ended up with that, his a kid that he went to school with. It was that kid's family that found this, and they found it while they was deer hunting um, near. Geez, why can't I think of the name? It's near the. It'll I'll, it'll come to me, man. Anyways, it was in Colorado,
I'd,
or it
I'd
was.
start playing charades with you like I do with my wife when I forget things, but I have no idea what you're gonna, so I can't help you.
It's near Fruita, Colorado. It's Grand Junction, near Grand Junction, Colorado. Um, it was there, and this guy that ended up with this stuff, he didn't find it. He when the people passed away that had it, he bought it from them. But he heard the story when he was a kid. He was interested in it when he was a kid because it was his friend's family that found it, and the stuff that they brought home, it was out of place archaeology stuff. So, I mean, some of this stuff, walrus bone spears, these tablets that were hermaphrodites I mean, it was strange stuff, and this was found in the 50s, and they even did a newspaper article on it in the 50s, and they took some of these artifacts to the museum in Denver, Colorado. And so the museum in Denver, Colorado, somewhere, unless somebody's stolen them or somewhere in a box somewhere, they've still got these things there. But most people, because it's out of place, most the archaeologists look at it and say, oh, it's obvious fake because it's out of place. But it's some strange looking stuff. They had little rodent hand necklaces out of these little rodent hands. They had it was some strange stuff. It was some strange stuff. And it had some materials in there that we could have had carbon dated, but I didn't follow up on it. I didn't try and raise any money to get the carbon data on it and whatnot. And so I kind of let that slip through the cracks, really kind of what it was. But it was a cool find, and it was some strange stuff that it would be cool to know exactly where that was found. But I wanted to say that strange things happened to the family after they brought, I mean, they would go there every year deer hunting and bring truckloads of this stuff back every year for a lot of years. And then strange things started happening to them, and they got spooked, and they thought it was because they took stuff out of this tomb. So they hauled a lot of it back.
Wow. And so these artifacts then are currently missing. So we don't know where they are right now.
Well, there's a man in these people that found it in Colorado. They lived in Texas, and so a man has what they had left, but the majority of it got taken back and put in the cave because they felt like they was cursed because they took it out. The Denver
Mm.
Museum is supposed to have some of it. I have a newspaper article that talks about the Denver Museum has some of this.
Well, maybe we should reach out to the Denver Museum with that news article and say
I
we'd like
definitely think, I definitely think we should.
yeah, and say we'd like to see these artifacts that are supposedly here, because a lot of these museums, dude, they got back rooms, they got places where they haven't put it out for the public, or like you said, in a box.
Yeah, and here's the problem with these museums and with these curators, these universities, and that they only have so much room to put stuff. And so if they get their shelves and their buildings get so full that they can't hold anymore, they just start dumping it, chucking it. And so a lot of this stuff has been lost, misplaced because of that. And so
Wow.
it's a sad deal, and I can understand that's why they don't really need to study the Indian Native American stuffs anymore. We've got more stuff dug up. They've already studied it left and right and upside down and everything else. You don't need another turkey bone that the Indians ate, in some museum somewhere. Because they just don't have room for it, And I remember one time I thought, man, I want to learn this archaeology stuff. So I went to some classes they was having for just people off the street, And so I went there, and they had us cleaning some artifacts they had. And so we start cleaning this. Was doing a dig on a cave, and we start cleaning these artifacts, and I'm looking at them, and they're just rocks. They're just rocks. We're cleaning these rocks, and I'm asking the archaeologist. They weren't chipped, or they weren't scrapers. They were just rocks. And I'm asking
That's
her,
awesome.
What is? Well, it might tell a story or something, And so they're cataloging these rocks, And I'm thinking, what a waste of space. But I don't know. I'm not a critic to the archaeologists, so maybe there was some deeper meaning to it that I just wasn't understanding. And I'm thinking, they're just rocks. They don't even look like they've been chipped on.
They were pet rocks. Pet rocks.
Pet rocks. They came out of this cave where they did find some stuff. I guess they just didn't let us clean the real stuff. We just got the rocks.
the rocks that were with the real stuff.
They let the real archaeologist students clean the real stuff, I guess. I don't know.
Man, I'm going to jump in and just share with you. Louisa says, love your work. Keep doing what you do.
Thank you, Louisa.
Yep. And then Kurt jumps in and says, lots of stories of Spanish gold in the wet mountains. Sangre de Cristo Mountains near Silver Cliff and West Cliff, Colorado. Also near Crestone, Colorado, are countless UFO stories in the same region. He's making a comment here, I imagine, based on this Colorado cave you're talking about. Is that what you're talking about, Kurt? Bring it up because of the Colorado cave. So Spanish stuff. Have you witnessed, because I know that you've shared some people claiming to have Spanish armor. Have you physically put your hands on any of this?
So I haven't physically found any, but I know people who have found stuff, and I've physically held it. I know I can talk about this now because he's passed away. I know a guy that found 400 Spanish gold bars in the Uinta Mountains. The smallest one was 12 pounds, and he let me hold the 12-pound one. It wasn't pure gold. It was only like, and I can't remember the exact numbers, so I'm making these up. It was like 58% gold, and that had a lot of copper, lead, iron, stuff in it, But there's people that have found stuff. You just, unless you happen to know these people, unless they trust you, you'll never see or hear about it,
Right.
And this guy I happen to know, and he happened to trust me, and that's why I got to hear about it,
Right. Well, they do say that, there are certain finds that have been made that we can't talk about, we can't tell people about, because it would be a problem. And so there are some amazing discoveries, some mind-blowing discoveries that just will never make it to the public, because it can't, it for many reasons. And so, yeah, I totally get that, man. Kurt said archaeology not quite the Indiana Jones, right? Not as cool as the as Indiana Jones. um,
Back in the day, it's these archaeologists was hired by museums to go out and find stuffs for the museums for the and back to the Native American stuffs. They got a lot of the Native American stuffs, which I can see these people, the Native Americans, not wanting their people dug up and all their stuff. 100%, I can agree with them. You can only study so much stuff. You can only put on display so much stuff, and their stuffs ought to not be dug up anymore, and it ought to be respected and reverenced. But when it comes to giants, that's a different story. We need to find a giant. We need to do tests on it like they did the Native Americans. It's got to be tested, but because of the NAGPRA laws, we're blocked. We can't do it. So.
Right. Well, there's a great possibility that I believe that giants, they're still giants. I believe they still exist, that they're not all gone. So I think there's still a chance to have first contact with the giant. And matter of fact, this leads me into, because we're talking museums and early archaeology. It kind of leads me, or let me first say this, and I'll say this. Aaron says, from us talking, that collection is wild. So I imagine when we were talking earlier about the collection of items that were discovered, and then Aaron says, my all-time favorite subject is the history of the Grand Canyon. Can't get enough. And that leads me into the Smithsonian and some of their finds, talking about the Grand Canyon, G.E. Kincaid. And then we have another story, Jake Jacobson and James White and Jake Jacobson. Gosh, I can't remember now. I'm forgetting the last name. Anyway, what do you think? Do you think the Smithsonian is holding on to a bunch of ancient artifacts that are hidden away? Some of those special items that has never made it public. There's so many things I want to ask. Basically, yeah.
So it makes no sense to me at all why they would care if there's giants. It makes no sense to me why they'd care if there was intercontinental travel before Columbus. It makes no sense to me, why they care if there was ancient records here before, the Spaniards Columbus got here. It makes zero sense to me why they would want to hide it. So it's hard to imagine why they would. But then when you talk about manifest destiny and that the laws and the rules that you can't conquer a people, but you can if they're dumb, and you conquer them, and that helps bring their civilization to a better standard than what it was, and you can't claim a manifest destiny on the Native Americans if there was such a thing here before, and so I don't know if it's true that's the reason they're hiding this stuff. It makes zero sense to me. So is that true that they're hiding stuffs? It kind of looks that way when you read all the newspaper articles, when you talk to everybody, it looks that way. Is that true? I don't really know, but it sure looks that way, know?
Yeah. I absolutely, and hopefully no one at the Smithsonian gets upset with me. And we're talking about your predecessors, okay? We're not talking about you today, Smithsonian workers. But I think it's plain as day that they've been hiding discoveries. I have many reasons why I believe that's true. One of them is what you've already touched on, is first and foremost is that if the natives here were brilliant, sophisticated, cultured, intelligent in mathematics and astronomy and everything else that we know is true, and they were, then the conquering and taking of their land and the conquering of them, could not have been justified, right? Because we've discussed this before. If they're savages, if they're not even children of God, we can annihilate them and justify what we're doing. So with that behind us, the other reasons are absolutely that they're searching for something and they want to be first boots on the ground to get it. Technology, records, so to me, there's all kinds of reasons they would do that. The giant bones. The thing that blows me away about giants is we have so much documentation about giants that exists from all the early explorers, written in their diaries, written in their memoirs. These guys were not lying. They had no reason to make it up. And it's a fact. It's Native American oral history, fact. Early explorers, history, fact. Everything from Cortez, and we can run down the list. And that's, we won't go too far down this rabbit hole right now. But all of that stuff is a fact. So, and clearly there's got to be plenty of bones, plenty of giants that have been discovered. And I don't know if I should put this out there, but I'm gonna go ahead and put this out there. I believe that John Wesley Powell was absolutely out here looking for these types of things for the Smithsonian. And so I'll leave it at that and won't go much further than saying that. But I believe that we've got proof and evidence of that happening, because where are they? Where are all the bones that were said to be discovered? The newspaper articles.
All the newspaper articles, even the congressional reports or the reports to the Smithsonian itself, their own archaeologists saying that they dug up giants, but now they come back 100 years later and say, oh, they weren't really qualified archaeologists. They didn't know how to use a tape measure.
Right, yeah. They didn't know. They don't know what big bones are, man. They were mistaken.
But the NAGPRA laws, the Natural Repatriation Act, that played into their hand where it gave them a reason to get rid of that stuff, to repatriate this stuff, and so that absolutely hurt. Trying to do further studies on these giants. I can understand it for the Native American people, but these giants, it's a different story.
Yeah.
But
go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No. Because
I was going to switch gears, so you go ahead.
All right. Well, we won't switch gears. I'll just say this: is that the Smithsonian fought the Native Americans and even repatriate. They didn't want to give back all that they had. They didn't want to say all that they had. So that was quite a fight in itself. So I'll just leave it at that so we can transition. Let's make sure really quick that someone's not asking a question about what we've just discussed. Okay. My all-time, okay, we just said that. Louisa says, you guys are hired for once a week live podcasts. Okay, you guys are hired. Terry, are you going to go out and do anything else with Heavy D, Sparks, and the Diesel Brothers? That's one question. I'll let you answer that, and then we'll ask this other question.
So, man, Heavy D reached out to me and says, man, we'd like to help you try and find a treasure, and so he offered his Black Hawk helicopter, and we flew around the Uintas, but we screwed up. We had so many sites, and we thought the smart thing to do would be start at the Wasatch Front and just work our way towards Vernal. And so we had so many sites, and he spent some time searching these areas. We was looking for cannons, we was looking for mines, we was looking for different things, and we never got to get to the good sites because we spent so much time on the other sites, working our way across the Uintas. And I don't know if Heavy D was disappointed or not. He says we'll do this again, but he spent a lot of money on that Black Hawk helicopter. He tried for us, he tried hard. And the one thing that we did get to that I absolutely wanted to find, is we tried finding. I had stories of this stone carved, life size carved bear, and two shafts with chicken ladders in them near it, and the
Yeah.
stone columns and some cliff walls. We did spend some time looking for that, and we couldn't find none of that either. And we scoured. He scoured, man. I mean, he took his helicopter, turned it sideways, and went slow up and down them cliff walls. I mean, we scoured them cliff walls good, and there was no stone columns there. And so I was disappointed about that, but man, hats off to Heavy D. It cost him a lot of money to fly that. It ain't cheap to fly that Black Hawk helicopter, and he tried hard for us, but we just didn't get to everywhere we wanted to go. But I did hit that spot, and I couldn't find what I was looking for. So,
Wow. Well, we'll have to hit up Heavy D and tell him to bring his Black Hawk helicopter out again, and take you back to those spots. I want to ring it too and let her know that yes, we're doing this weekly podcast. Terry's doing something, but there's a time coming very shortly here where I'll be wrapping up this first season of Dan Dillman Live because I've got to get out into the field and I got some work to do, and I'm sure Terry does too. So just for those of you who are watching, I'm not going to be doing this live every single week for the rest of the year. There will be a season wrap up after a few more episodes, and then there'll be a break, and then I'll talk about season 2 whenever that's going to happen. But this is Terry and I are definitely boots on the ground kind of guys, but wintertime it's harder in certain areas that we're looking at, and if we can avoid being there when it's frozen, that's better. Floyd Mann is watching. Terry is a great adventurer.
Floyd Mann is one of the true first treasure hunters who got to know all the other treasure hunters. I don't know if you knew who Floyd Mann was. He put out a bi-weekly, I think, newsletter every week for all the treasure hunters, and he got to know personally all the old time treasure hunters. And he got to become a wealth of knowledge, and so hats off to Floyd Mann for that.
Wow. Well, Floyd, we're honored and blessed to have you join us, and I know we've become Facebook friends recently, I'm sure because of my association with Terry. Look forward to meeting you one day, man. Appreciate you. Kurt says John Wesley Powell hid info with the Smithsonian cover-up. If it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, we know giants in the Grand Canyon were in the Grand Canyon cave. Chris Davis says, I believe they are looking for Atlantis technologies. That's why they hide everything. No doubt, Chris, no doubt, because there is ancient technology that is hidden and buried. Me and my family are convinced of that. I imagine Terry is convinced of that too.
I've heard that from a lot of different sources that there is ancient technology out there hidden, and a lot of this ancient technology is still guarded by the ancient technology, scarecrow type ancient technology that kind of protects this stuff. So is that true? I don't know, but I've heard that a lot lately.
Yeah, I believe it. I mean, everything, even with sound and frequency and resonance and abilities for tapping into the Earth's magnetic field and levitate, just so many, some will call it science because it's just advanced science that we're unaware of or others are unaware of. And it's out there. I'm convinced of that. Kurt says, what are the chances these stone carving bears, entrance, etc., are seasonally available via a portal or dimensional? Sounds wild, but we have UFO sightings of craft going right into massive rock walls.
That's out of my realm, but I've talked to people that's gone into portals in the UNAs, and they had to back out. Strange things happen to them. I've never had that happen, and maybe I don't know. I think the bear, the columns, the stone columns in the cliff walls. The guy who told me about it, Mike. He's not long. The information was passed on to him, and he 100% believed it. I made a couple of trips out there. He's made a bunch of trips out there looking for this, and it's no easy task. It's a full day's hike in there, and then you got to set up a base camp and then hike another 5 miles in from there. It's no easy task to get in there. And Mike's gone in there a bunch looking for these stone columns. And so I know that he 100% believes in it. So did the coordinates he get from the guy who given it to him, did the guy mess up on the coordinates and he's looking in the wrong spot, or was the guy lying to him? He believes the guy was telling him the truth, but we don't know. The stone bear, 100%. I believe that the guy who's telling me about it, Mark's telling me about it, I 100% believe he's seen it. And I tried to get him to come with me on this helicopter ride with Heavy D Sparks, and he couldn't get off of work. Something happened, and he couldn't get off of work that day. And man, it would have been great to have him say, here it is. It's a possibility that we just could have missed it. But that stone columns in the cliff walls, for the GPS location we had, man, we scoured that cliff, up, down, forward, backwards, and it just was not there. So I don't know.
Well, it sounds like a great mystery that still needs to be solved. So sounds like it could be something you could build a team, man, and go on a mission, spend a few days or a week out there and either find it or
when
not.
You go out there, you spend a week out there, because it's so far to hike in there and put in a base camp. You just don't do it in a day. You spend a week out there, and but it's the area was so vast, and the trees, and it was like a needle in a haystack. But with that helicopter, man, we was able to look down and see things, and I was really disappointed we didn't at least find the bear, but we didn't,
Yeah, I will say to Kurt. Oh, go ahead.
No, go. What are you going to say?
No. I've got to learn to listen more and not talk as much. Go for it, Terry.
So I wanted to backtrack to the Grand Canyon. The Kincaid's Cave, and that. They talked about Egyptians or Egyptian-like Oriental. When I was tracking down the mystery glyphs, I had a friend of mine who got interested in the mystery glyphs, and he told me, he says, me and my family, we went down to Lake Powell, and we took a houseboat, and this was when the lake was as high as it had ever been. They took a houseboat, went way back into one of these little canyons on the houseboat, and then camped for the night, and then got up early in the morning with the family and went for a little hike, and they found this cool rock that had these writings on it. And they thought it was pretty cool, so they took their family picture of it. Never thought anything of it, other than they just used it for a backdrop for the family photo. 10 years later, he shows me this picture. This stuff looks like Egyptian hieroglyphs. I mean, it wasn't just a little bit. There was a lot of writing there, And so I mounted a couple expeditions to try and find this. He gave me kind of the area, but the problem was the lake had receded like 100 feet. Well, 100 feet straight up and down,
Yeah.
When you're talking on I'm trying to see my hand in the screen. When you're talking on a 10 or 20 degree angle, you're talking miles, that we're away from these things. So I've tried to find these, and I haven't been able to find it. But one time when we came back from a trip, one of my researchers, Darby Robinson, she found a girl that posted a picture of some of these exact same type of Egyptian type hieroglyphs that she'd found 30 miles away from where we'd been looking. And we got the GPS coordinates to them, but I haven't been back yet to check those out and to try and find. But my thought is, if these guys were in the Grand Canyon, which is the Colorado River, that's along the Colorado River, and Lake Powell is formed out of the Colorado River. They dammed up the Colorado River. If they're in they're in the Grand Canyon, why wouldn't they be farther on down the Colorado River either, too? So if these hieroglyphs are part of that culture, what else is there by these these hieroglyphs. So I need to find these hieroglyphs and do some boots on the ground and figure out if there's anything else in that area that would go along with the Kincaid Cave in the Grand Canyon.
Now, are you saying that these glyphs that you're talking about, are they like the mystery glyphs?
No, these are Egyptian-looking hieroglyphs. 100%
Got you.
full Egyptian hieroglyphs. Yeah.
Yep. Well, to me, it's common sense that the Egyptians, they were great travelers, navigators of the stars. They absolutely came to the Americas, and I believe that our Native Americans from here went there as well, hands down. Like, to me, that's common sense. They were world powers. The Egyptians, even the Aztecs and the Mayan, these were world powers, world empires, and that they had communication and travel to the other empires. They had diplomatic relations. To me, it's common sense. I can't even conceive for a moment. These guys built pyramids, navigated the stars, and everything else that they have done. But they didn't have communication with each other, though. It's just retarded, in my opinion. Just goofy. So I wholeheartedly believe that there are Egyptian remnants and petroglyphs and pictographs, and Glen Canyon too. The whole Glen Canyon that they flooded. Man, I believe they flooded that because there's just so much evidence there. They said, one, it's fit perfect within their plan, but they just flooded it because it's got too much history there. They just had to bury it with the water. So I believe there's a bunch of stuff to discover there. I want to read Richard Brewer says, Terry, I remember you interviewed a guy that found a carved bear. So this is what he's said this earlier. A carved bear back up in the mountains, and you were making plans to try and find it. What happened with that? Well, we just covered that.
Yeah, that's one of the things I had never. Mike went several times there, 3 or 4 times backpacking and spending a week back in there, and I went a few times. We never found it on foot, but when Heavy D offered his services with the Black Hawk helicopter, man, we scoured that and we could not find it. So
crazy. So Richard, he answered that. Kurt says Terry Carter's A team. The KC boys are in. We'll bring some barbecue.
So cool. Man, they bring barbecue and barbecue ribs all the time. The Kansas City boys. Anyways, he's probably talking about our Moon Lake gathering, and he was there last year, Dan, and helped us out. We're planning it again for this year, August 14th, 15th, and 16th, and it's going to be better this year because we've got the event center in Duchesne County, so it'll all be indoors. I don't have to worry about lighting
rain.
For the screen. Don't have to worry about the weather. It's going to be phenomenal. So
wow. Well, I haven't got my invite, but maybe I was there last year, so maybe
No, you're 100%. That's on my to-do list, is invite you to come out, man.
Well, super duper. I loved it. I loved everyone there, and it was a great vibe, and would love to continue to be a part of that history for sure. Let's see. All right, I want to make sure I answer those questions. Yes. All right. Oh, here comes Kirk's barbecue. Chris Davis says Kirk's barbecue is outstanding. I missed the barbecue. I think I got some barbecue sauce though from him.
You probably did, because I know they've given me several bottles of the barbecue sauce. So yeah.
All right. So I got so many questions. How much time do you have, by the way? Just check. I'm sure you got.
I got all night.
Okay.
I don't have anything else going.
That's all I needed to hear. So let's talk about some of this hidden history. Let's talk more about it. I wanted to bring up the mystery glyphs. Those mystery glyphs. I know that you've spoken about them before. You've gone to see them physically, right? You've gone there and seen those glyphs. I've looked at some of that stuff. Some of it's clearly Aztec. Some of them, it's got the several,
It's a mixture of several different languages. It's got Mayan in it. It's got Chippewa in it. It's got Aztec in it. It's got it's got several different cultures and Chinese in it. Oriental. It's got several different. It's a kind of a hodgepodge of different languages.
Well, and one of the things that I was going to share with you is that could it be a Rosetta Stone? Because
Maybe.
because it has all these different icons or writings or symbols of these different cultures. Like for sure I've looked at them going, oh, that's Aztec right there, that's the flint, it's like the flint stone and other ones. And if it's really got Chinese and Aztec and Mayan and Chippewa and all these other ones, then is it some kind of Rosetta Stone that is with all the languages? Now, I'm not saying that's what it is, but I'm just saying, hey, that's a possibility. Has anyone cracked the code at all? Has anyone?
Well, there's several people that think they've cracked the code, and they all think it says different things. Have they really cracked it? Who knows? The best examples of it that I know come from Chief Copeway. He wrote a book in 1850. He was the chief of the Ojibwa Nation, and he wrote down some of these symbols in there. And he said this was the pictorial language of the ancients. He said this was the pictorial language of the ancients. And then he talks about how the ancients, the priests from after the time of the flood, made a bunch of sets of records, and they gave them to all the Indian tribes. And he specifically said, even the tribes out west got a copy of these ancient records, And then he talks about he was the chief of the Ojibwa Nation, and he didn't know that their tribe had these ancient records. It was given to a specific group, and I don't know if they called them the medicine man or whatever, but there was like 10 or 15 of them in this group, and to be chosen in this group, they only chose the most honest and bravest of the braves to be in this group, and they had to be smart because they had to learn that what each one of these records meant. They had to memorize it. And they said it had been passed down, the meaning of these, for over 100 generations. And their tribe, they had a group of these records, and they kept them in a hollowed out cedar log filled with goose down, and then they threw these records in them. And these records was made on birch bark, slate, gold, copper, and things like that. And every so many years they would dig, and then it was smeared with pine pitch to keep it waterproof. Every so many years they would dig this up. This group that was in charge of these, and then they would pass them around, and they'd remember what each one said, and they'd memorize it. And the new people, when one of them would die off, they'd bring a new person in, and they'd commit them to memorizing all this down. They said the translation was not lost for over 100 generations. It was made sure that it was, word for word what the original meaning was. And then if any of them started to deteriorate, they would make an exact replica of it, like the ones on birch bark. They would deteriorate over, these hundreds of generations. Sometimes they'd make an exact replica, and then they'd put that back in this hollowed out log, and then they would split it up amongst them to put in their medicine bags or whatever for their ceremonial stuff, But Chief Copway, he was the chief of the Ojibwa Nation, and he never knew a thing about this until his uncle's best friend was one of these watchers, one of these caretakers of this, and he told him about it, And right. So, but the thing that was interesting to me is I think part of that language on these records is this ancient pictorial language, which is the mystery glyphs.
And so the chief didn't, even though he wrote this book, he didn't give any interpretation of
he did. He gave an interpretation of what he said they meant, and he said that there was over 200 of these characters, And I think over time that people lost the meaning of what these characters are. But the interesting thing to me was when they talked about how if any of them was deteriorating, they would refresh them up, or they'd fresh them up, or they'd make an exact replica. Some of
Right.
these mystery glyphs, some of the ones in California, one of the ones in California for sure, you can see that somebody's gone in and freshened some of them up, but some of them right next to each other still were in good enough shape that they didn't freshen them up. You could tell that.
Right.
And I wonder, was this part of an ancient record that a group of these watchers was keeping track of, keeping fresh, and then over time, when the Spaniards came in and all that, they brought all the diseases, all these Indians died, and then we had the Indian Wars, and did all these Indians die off over time, and so now there was nobody to watch over these, nobody to keep them freshened up, nobody to. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Well, has one thing I would suggest someone smarter than me should do is get Google Earth, or get the latitude and longitude of every single one of these if they already have them, and map them out and see see if there's anything common at these locations that they exist. That would be something to look at. Have you guys done that? Has anyone done that you're aware of?
We've kind of mapped them out, kind of, and I really haven't dove into that real far yet. I just know that when I first started tracking them down, I found one in the mountains east of Provo, and I didn't know about any of the others. And then when I learned about the others, they only knew of 12, and so my site made 13. And when I started tracking them down and writing articles and made a website and all that, slowly some more sites got brought forward to me. And so today we've got it up to, I think there's 39 sites of these scattered throughout the western United States. When I first started, there was only the 13. And I think there's a lot more of them out there. Just a lot of these are in remote locations, hard to get spots. And when you see some of these, whoever's doing it is traveling around on horseback. They're at least 150 years old. That there's no question about that. If how much older, if any, who knows? But they're at least 100 to 150 years old.
Well,
So somebody,
the chief said that these been around since right after the flood.
yeah. So somebody's traveling around on horseback, or and they're looking for a unique spot. And when you see some of these sites, there's always some kind of a little shelter or something unique about this spot, but it's off the beaten path. So they're not familiar with the area unless they're getting with the local tribe of Indians there and say, "Hey, man, you got a cool site here. We can leave a mark," because they're not on the beaten path. They're off the beaten path, and there's something unique about the site usually. And
Right.
so. They weren't left for just anybody to find. They're in remote locations and hard to find some of these. But
Yeah.
but when I first started tracking these down, at first I thought they were Aztec. Well, first I thought they were Spanish. I thought it had to do with a Spanish treasure. Man, my heart was pumping. I thought it had to do with Spanish treasure.
You were on
And
it.
I figured out, it's not a Spanish treasure. I thought, well, this has to do with Aztec treasure. So then my heart was pumping again, and I started researching the Aztecs, and then I started, researching all kinds of different things. But along the way, I started finding out things that was found near some of these sites that people didn't really know that these sites was there when they found this stuff. One was they found this Egyptian, this rock that was in the shape of a chicken egg by one of these sites in Pocatello, Idaho. And it had some markings on it, and it was found in 1918, and it was found by this young girl, and they just thought it was Indian scratchings on it, And this young girl, she kept it all her life, and when she became old, she had terminal cancer, and she was dying, and her great-granddaughter happened to be there visiting, and so she was rummaging through her stuff and found that, and she gave it to the great-granddaughter. The great-granddaughter kept it all her life because it was something cool that her great-grandmother gave to her before she passed away, And when King Tut's tomb exhibit was making its rounds through the United States in the 70s, in the middle 70s, the Smithsonian magazine put out an article in in their magazine about King Tut's tomb, and she was in the dentist office. She's now an older lady, and she has this rock that her grave miner gave her. She's got reading this article about King Tut's tomb. Well, she started noticing that there was markings on King Tut's tomb, or on his sarcophagus, that was the exact same markings that was on this egg, this chicken egg rock thing that her grandmother had given her. So she took it to the University of Berkeley and showed them, and they did some tests on it. They says, man, it was a piece of rock that came from Egypt, a piece of Egypt. It was a piece of alabaster, and it had King Tut's high priest signature on one side of the rock and his cartouche of his name on the other. Now, this rock was found in 1918, but they never broke into King Tut's tomb until 1921. They didn't even know really who King Tut was. How'd that egg, with his get to Pocatello, Idaho in 1918,
Well, keep going.
Go ahead.
No, keep going.
There's been some other Egyptian artifacts and some other things that was found near some of these sites, these mystery glyph sites that were Egyptian and Chinese, and different strange things has been found at some of these sites. And I'm sure there's other things that's been found that I have no clue what's been found.
Yeah, you know what would totally, and it blows me away that whoever they are don't come with this simple things. They work so hard to hide all of these things, when in fact, if they just told everybody, yeah, the Chinese were here, the Egyptians were here, they were sharing. If they admitted all that and said, yeah, that's all true, and yeah, we found some things, people would stop caring so much, because they'd be like, oh, the mystery's over. They probably wouldn't even go looking for too much stuff. Most people wouldn't. Maybe you and I would, but they would just be like, oh yeah, everyone knows that, man. The Egyptians were here, the Chinese were here, but they work so hard at keeping it a secret and saying that, oh, this is all BS, it never happened, blah blah blah. But these things exist, so smart people or common sense people like us go, wait a minute now. This is proof they were here, and you just said it. Before King Tut's tomb was found, we've got his signature, and so I think that
and to be perfectly fair with like the archaeologists, they're taught that there was no intercontinental travel before Columbus. Doesn't matter that Chief Joseph had a record written on a piece of stone or whatever that had the cells for in cuneiform language. It doesn't matter this stuff. But they're taught that there just was not, and I think maybe things are maybe starting to change. But it got so bad that if anybody tried to discredit what the standard quo was, they were discredited, and a perfect example is the cocaine and the tobacco mummies. When those scientists found cocaine in the mummies and tobacco in the mummies, and all of a sudden, man, they got attacked left and right, and says, man, you guys are off your rockers, and you're no longer a great scientist, you're no longer a great person, you're off your rockers, and how dare you say such blasphemy, and so, but to be 100% fair, there has been a lot of fraud. There has been a lot of, yes. And so they do got to be cautious. And so to be 100% fair, I can see that, there has been a lot of fraud.
Agreed. People are, trust me, I've seen some things even on the internet, some of the far-fetched stories, but hey, God bless them. It's entertainment. I'm not mad at nobody, but some of the stuff I go, no, that is not a gold nugget this big, and you're holding it, and no. I had someone. Anyway, I won't even say. But I agree with you. There are lots of the archaeologists are great, and yes, they are taught a certain way. They're in a box. This is how we operate. This is what we've been taught. I will say that I've got several friends, archaeologist friends, who are out of the box thinkers and who are open. I mean, they don't sit there and run with every theory I got, but at least they're like, this could be. It could be, and I just hope we get more and more open-mindedness. And then I just hope the system, because really it comes down to the academic system that's in place and the histories that have been taught and the books that have been written, and that it's okay. I'm just saying this to the world, to those in power, to those not in power. It's okay to say you were wrong. It's okay to say we were wrong, and we could rewrite these books. There's nothing wrong with that, and starting again, right? So.
And a little bit, they're starting to say, well, maybe the Vikings did come over. Maybe
of course,
slowly starting to, but yeah.
Yeah. Even if the whole civilization, even if thousands of them didn't come over, you better believe there was a Viking who sailed over here on his own, some lone, I want to say awesome, I was going to say BA, I'll say it, badass Viking who came sailing on his own and said, I'm forget all these people, I'm going out, I'm going to see what's going on, I've heard of this other land.
Well, even to think that the Phoenicians, who were great sailors, to think that even one of them just didn't get blown off course and hit the currents and brought that they, it's proven, Thorheidt proved that the currents will bring them right here, and to think that even just accidentally it didn't happen, is
it's goofy. It's goofy, and that's just the simplest way to put it. It is silly.
And they say, well, where's the proof then? Is it over here? You're not talking a mass civilization coming over here. You're talking a small party, a small group, where everything they have, is they got to keep track of it for survival. They're not likely to lose things, and if they looking for things to make their own stuff to survive with, it's to think that you're going to find a bunch of stuff all over the place, and then when it is found, it's a one-off and it's discarded because it doesn't fit. We don't know how it got here. It's discarded and it's not kept track of. And so because of that, we can't place the history. You might find a little piece over here and a little piece over there. Who say that the Indians didn't find it and brought it back to their village and that's why it's there, But if we'd keep track of that stuff instead of just dismissing it, not recorded in the official archaeological finds, we could be able to put together a picture.
Yeah. There's no doubt. Even the high priest, because this was known. Look, even the Greeks spoke about going to Egypt to learn from their, high priest, and the high priest, and call them Greek philosophers and high minds. They would travel to the other lands, and they would sit there in their schools of thought. They would bring their wisdom. They would get wisdom. So even on these smaller parties, it was happening. Hands down, I say it's 100% fact. And the proof is in some of the ancient writings. We know the Greeks went to Egypt. We know that the native oral history says, like my buddy Roger from Re-Indigenizing Minds, he says his people traveled the entire globe and did trade. And that he holds on to the ancient records and the ancient, gosh, here I go playing charades. The ancient routes, trade routes, and so we have the info, but like I said, it's just not mainstream. It's not accepted, in the colleges, so to speak. But what's the new college? It's the YouTube college, man. People are going to the University of YouTube.
and there's a lot of great information in YouTube, but then there's also a lot of there's a lot of other stuff's on there too. So a lot of BS,
no doubt, a lot of BS. Yeah. Have you heard the theory though? Have you heard this theory? About Egypt actually being in the Americas? When they're talking about the rivers, and have you heard that?
I've heard people say that this was the original Egypt and they migrated from here. I just heard people saying that. Is that documented proof or anything? I don't know.
Well,
this was the Nile River and all that. Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. And then we've got all the names, Memphis and Tennessee, and these are names of used in Egypt, right? And so it is interesting. It's once again, we need someone to connect all the dots. There are some people out there who are doing it.
I need you to build a time machine. Go back and let me know, man. Let me know
That's
what
it.
really happened, Dan.
Yeah. Well, we can do that. I believe in time travel. Now, for sure, we can mental time travel. What I mean is through consciousness, we can time travel. And but of course, I don't have I haven't dialed in exactly to say I want to go back to this year. That I haven't personally done yet. I just apparently seem to randomly go here or there, usually in the future, unfortunately. All right, we got another questions. Hey, gentlemen, I'm late but never lame. That's Nicholas Burnett has joined us.
Nicholas, how you doing?
There's my buddy right there. Roger just rang in. Re-indigenizing minds. Hi, Dan and Terry. 3.25 times 9 equals 29.25 north latitude of the Giza Pyramid in Egypt. Roger, Terry, you've got to talk to Roger.
He's contacted me a few times, and we've been going to get together, and I've just been so busy in that I haven't, but he shared some stuff with me that seemed pretty interesting.
He's not crazy. So I'll clarify for you. He's not crazy. He's actually a dude full of wisdom. And so I would love for you to get him on your platform, man, because you've got such a massive reach, and Roger deserves to be heard. So
yeah,
that would be awesome.
We was going to get together with him and some lady, I think, and we was going to do, and then we kind of misstepped some steps, and then I got swamped doing some other things, but yeah, I definitely would like to do an interview with him, and I got some people that I would like to hook him up with too. So yeah,
and he's in New Mexico, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe one of these times when you're on your missions, if you're heading to New Mexico, you can capture him. He said, "Sorry, Terry, I got real sick." Yeah, he did get sick. He was on his way into the spirit realm, but he is back.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're back, Roger.
Nicholas says, "I know an old timer here in Brigham City that knows many things. He claims Brigham Young led a long campaign to rid Utah of ancient sites and destroy them."
I can't say one way or the other. However, I do 100% believe, without a question, that the Mormons, they believed that this ancient stuff we're talking about was part of their religion. So anytime that they found anything to do with that, they scooped it up and gathered it up. Like unlike the regular mainstream, that was hiding it and getting rid of it. Well, they was keeping it for themselves, and I guess hiding it too, because I don't know, if they brought it out saying, whether it was to prove their religion or not, they thought it was, and so they kept it, but they didn't want to share it because people would say, well, you just made that up. You faked it to prove your religion or something, So I 100% believe that the Mormons have a lot of artifacts and information and things that were found that has to deal with these ancients that we're talking about.
Oh, hands down. It's even reminiscent of the Nag Hammadi stuff that was found, the Gnostic text. They found copper scrolls. They found, of course, on animal skins, all the ancient biblical texts and other writings, that were discovered, in the Middle East. Falls right in line with what Joseph Smith and those guys say they found with their copper scrolls or golden scrolls or what have you. We know of other, you just said it, this chief was saying that, they had copper. And so there's just so much stuff that has been found that is behind closed doors. So if you're watching and if you've inherited, if anyone watching right now has inherited any of these ancient things, ancient scrolls, copper, gold, artifacts, reach out to me and Terry. We don't have to broadcast
we'd like to know.
But we'd like to know. We'd like to hear the story.
I think there is a lot of stuff out there. I really do.
Yeah, absolutely. There, hands down, there's got to be. And so hopefully somebody watching has got something new that we haven't even heard or seen. And we would love to do that. Tell Terry, tell people really quick how to reach out to you, by the way.
You can find me on YouTube, Terry Carter Treasure Hunter, or on Facebook, Terry L. Carter.
All right, cool. So reach out to Terry. You could also reach out to me at dandillman.com or info@dandillman.com or my YouTube and all that kind of stuff. Let's see. Hot Kurt said, hot tub time machine. Come on, Dan. Well, Kurt, we could fall asleep. Not me and you, by the way. A group of us could fall asleep in a hot tub and then have time travel. Anyway, that didn't sound right. Forget I said that. Barbecue only.
Barbecue.
Gosh, man, we were just you were on a roll with some stuff. So did we finish the mystery glyphs? I want to make sure. I thought I missed somebody saying something. Maybe I didn't. Price Productions got my man Terry on! Exclamation! Let's go! So Price Productions says, "What's up?"
Hey, what's up, Price Productions?
So we covered mystery glyphs, and I think the mystery glyphs should be looked into. And maybe Roger, if you're listening still, I would like to know if any of the GPS coordinates for the mystery glyphs locations line up with any of your ancient trade routes. That would be interesting to know. And then I'd also like to know if those mystery glyphs line up with any certain stars, or any astronomical alignments. That would be interesting to know as well. I want to make sure. So of course you don't have any of that info right now, but that'd be dope to find out, Terry. So
yes, good.
I got so many different questions here. Is there anywhere you want to go, or should I just ask my next question?
Wherever you want to go.
So Brewer's Cave, right? Brewer's Cave. I know you know lots about it. Maybe for those who might be listening who know nothing about it, maybe give just a brief overview, and then I got some questions.
So in the 1950s, a man by the name of John Brewer, he was building an Indian bust out of arrowheads that he wanted to enter into the county fair, and he didn't have enough arrowheads to finish making this Indian bust out of it. So he got asking around where he could find some more arrowheads, and he had this guy tell him, that he used to play with the Indians when he was a kid, and they had a cave over here, and there was some arrowheads there. And eventually, after quite a while, John found this cave. He starts digging down. He starts finding arrowheads, and he digs deeper, and he finds these stairs, and he's digging down these stairs, and he breaks into a tomb. Inside this tomb, there's two stone sarcophaguses, and when he unlids them, there's a male and a female. The man was 8'9" and had red hair and breastplate and crown and a big sword, and the woman was 7'8" and she had blonde hair and a crown and a breastplate, and then he found these stone boxes that were wrapped in cedar bark that were smeared with pine pitch and then mud, so they looked like dirt clods, or there was a whole wall of these built, and inside these had records on there was records written on stones, there was records written on copper, lead, and then things like that. And so that's kind of an overview of John Brewer's Cave.
And where is John Brewer's Cave located, supposedly?
In Manti, Utah, or somewhere in the Sanpete Valley in Utah.
And does anyone know where this exactly is today? Are you aware of where this exact location is, or is it kind of unknown?
So I speculate where it's at, and I found, geez, where do I want to go with this?
Think about it. Don't give up too much now if you don't want to.
This is a big, long story. I got some information that I shouldn't have been privy to that I got, and because of that, it led me to all the people that were involved to try and find out more about this. And I contacted all the ones that are still alive, and they're all dead now. And I interviewed them, and I got their notes and their interviews, and I took all that stuff, and I went to where I figured it had to be. And it took me a while, but I found the clues that said this is the place. And I dug down in, and I found a cavern, and I dug down in the cavern, and I found soot coming up off the walls, and I started finding the old in John Brewer's journal. I ended up with that in these notes I got that I shouldn't have ended up with. And he talked about he's using candles because this is in the 50s, and I started finding old candles. Everything I started finding lines up. I think I found the spot, but until it's broken into and I find giant mummies in stone sarcophaguses and stone boxes with ancient records in it, it's just me thinking, it's just me thinking I know where it's at. But the problem is that it's in an area where you can't do any digging. You can't file a mining claim and dig. You can't even put a shovel in the ground and do anything. And I contacted a lawyer in the who helped in Arizona, and we contacted the lawyer that helped write the antiquities laws for Utah, and told him, put him under lawyer-client confidentiality, and without really telling him who I was and exactly where we was at, told him what I wanted to do. And it's not that I want to go in and loot the thing. I want to find if it's giants. I want to video it and share with the world. I want to bring archaeologists, and I don't want to cart them off. And I want the world to see this. I don't want it to be hidden. But telling them what I was doing and whatnot, he told me I just sell drugs because I'm gonna want to get caught. I'm going to prison just the same. I don't want to go to prison, so that kind of put a halt to that. I've tried to work with them. Had an archaeologist write some letters and to the government agency that's in charge of it, and they says, well, you gotta see if you can get permission with the Utes and the Paiutes. So I was working on that, and then before I even got information, back from the Paiutes and the Utes, they says, no, even if you get permission, we decide we just don't want to go down that rabbit hole because of NAGPRA and things like that. So it's kind of locked away, but everything fits. That I'm in the right spot, and so, but until it's broken into and verified, it's just a great story and just me thinking I know where it's at. I might have a great imagination, but in the beginning, I didn't even know if this story was real, because this was before the internet. I didn't know that there was such things as giants. The only thing I knew about giants was David and Goliath. I didn't know there was such a thing as giants. I didn't know, and so I had to do a lot of interlibrary loans and try and figure out and find out, well, yeah, there is a such thing as giants. And I had to do, all this research to even know. And then unwittingly, I found a guy who had one of these stone boxes that came out of the tomb. And it was wrapped in the cedar bark, and so we had it carbon dated, and it dated between 50 and 350 BC. When I got that carbon dating results back, I thought, well, there's got to be some truth to this, and that's when I went looking for it and trying to find it, and it took me down a long rabbit hole with a lot of different leads and things, but ultimately I got blocked and stopped.
Well, I got so many questions with this. So it's clearly on federal land, right? Protected park must be, if you can't do what you're talking about, because I think it's on the park lands is when you can't even get mining claims. Are you sure you can't even put a claim on the land?
Where it's at, you can't even put a shovel in the ground. You can't put a mining claim on it. You can't do nothing.
Did it used to be owned by Brewers?
It used to be
private property.
It used to be privately owned. Brewer claimed that he owned it, he'd bought it, but then the family says that he bought it when the father was not coherent, had lost his mind, and so they wrangled it back from him. I don't know that part's true, but it used to be on private land, and then it got bought up by this government agency.
Well, shoot, man, you think we can reach out to the President of the United States and ask him if we can?
The only way we're going to be able to get it, because it's shut off right now, and there's so many clues, that there's just so many clues that I'm in the right spot. But until it's broken into, it's just a great story,
Right. Well, what about are you allowed? Are we allowed to do ground penetrating radar out there? Are we allowed to do investigative work? Maybe no digging, but can we come out there with some
So
tools?
the archaeologist told me that you're not even supposed to do that, but I don't know why you couldn't do that. I mean, you're not doing any destructive anything. You're not digging holes. You're not, and I did that, and that's one of the things that helped me verify that I was in the right spot. John Brewer drew um, a drawing of what the inside of this tomb looked like, and he talked about it in his journal, and what he told other people is that he was worried about people finding the original entrance, and so when he got it broke inside, there was this tunnel that went straight up a shaft, but it didn't go all the way to the ceiling. And so he figured out where that was at. He went above and he dug down about 5-8 feet and broke through. And now he's got this shaft. And so now he can drop a rope down, drop down this shaft into the room. He does this under the cover of night, and he just got to put a board underneath the dirt, on the top of his shaft, cover up, brush it off, and so he dynamited the original entrance off, and which I think, is what I found. And then he starts backfilling because he's by himself. He can't bucket all this stuff up this 30-foot shaft. So he's backfilling the stairway in the tunnel leading into the tomb to excavate this tomb, because there's 4 foot of dirt inside this tomb, And so I took a ground penetrating radar up there, and for this to be the right spot, there had to be a shaft, And I took a ground penetrating radar up there, and we found a shaft, and the shaft has been collapsed. But it's clearly, you see them ground penetrating radar scans. There's squiggly lines, and you see a little hump here and bump there. It was clearly, the squiggly lines, and then a shaft. It was clearly a shaft, and John Brewer's diagram says that this shaft is 30 feet into the room, and then the room that's to the ceiling, and then this room, I can't remember. It's like 10 foot tall, 13 foot tall. I don't remember the exact dimensions. So the radar we had would only go down 30 feet, and then this area is clay, and clay messes with ground penetrating radar big time, But it clearly showed the shaft, but we couldn't get it to go deep enough to show the room, So I needed more powerful,
a more powerful unit
to see if we can see the room. And then what I'd love to do is drill a 1-inch hole down through the shaft and stick a camera down in it and see what we can see. Is what I would really love to do.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, your description of what they say they found, the giants. Have you seen that video? It's been on the internet for decades, I think. It's looks like a red-headed, kingly, person with a golden breastplate and a big old sword. It's a video that
I think I had you seen it. It looks like it's like the guy sleeping maybe or something. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. It just at least what you're describing, the Brewer said, sounds kind of similar to that. Now, I've always seen that video and just go, man, part of me feels total BS, Another part of me goes, I don't know. This is, what if it's not? And so I don't know. That's just interesting. Did he ever claim to have any videos or photos of this stuff, or none that you know of?
He tried taking. This was in the 50s and 60s. He tried taking photos, and every time he did, they never took out. They never took. And so finally, he brought a bunch of plates out, and he couldn't even get pictures of them when he brought them out. So he had to take them to a professional photographer to take pictures of them. That's how we got pictures of the plates and stuff that he found, but never got any pictures of the mummies. Just the drawings. He made drawings of them, and his description was that they didn't look like they were just sleeping. They were leathered skin, and they didn't look like they were just they were dead.
Right. And he said this in the 50s though, which is interesting. Which is interesting that
a lot of things that he said back in the 50s and 60s, we didn't have the internet. We didn't know all this stuff that we know today because of the internet. He said things that people just did not know that matches today what we do know.
Right, right. So that lends credence to his whole story, and I thought that there were artifacts that are out there. I thought I've seen photos of artifacts. Is that not true? Aren't there stones with carvings on them and some other things?
There are them plates, that stone box. There are artifacts. There are artifacts out there. So,
do we know who has those?
We don't know who has all of them. A lot of the people that had them are dead now, and I don't know what happened to them. I know who has the stone box that I found out who had. I know who has that, and whether he shows it to people, or he used to all the time. I don't know if he will now or not, but I do know that there were. John Brewer made some frauds.
Okay.
John Brewer was bringing this stuff out and showing them people, and people started stealing them from him. And he felt like God was going to punish him for that. He felt like he just lost, something really important. And so because of that, he started making replicas of them, and people started stealing the replicas. and so and because of that tainted the whole story, because I had a guy tell me he stole one of the replica. He thought it was a real deal. He thought it was a gold plate, and he stole it. And years and years after Brewer died, he admitted to me that he stole it, and he felt bad, but he thought he needed to preserve it or whatever. And so I got it from him and I had it tested, and it wasn't gold at all. It was a brass, and it lined up, and it was a small plate, and it lined up exactly with the makeup of it, the metallurgy of it matched up exactly with the rifle brass casing, and it was small enough that you could see that it could have been cut, rifle brass casing cut, and then these marks put in it, and so I think I would have thought maybe the whole thing was a fraud until we did that carbon dating, and so I think he did fraud some stuffs, and I think that tainted the whole story. But still, I think there's a real good chance that this story is real, but there are some frauds out there.
Yeah, and it's also possible that some of these agencies, whoever they were back in the day, could have went and recovered what was there. It's a possibility, right? And especially if you say that it's backfilled, it's hard for me to believe one man can.
You're talking about a guy that you think he's gone there for a week or 2 weeks or a month. This guy spent years.
Okay.
10 years. We're talking, he was dedicated, and, there's not a lot of people that are dedicated like that today, He went there every night after work, he went there, he spent, we're not just talking about a little bit of time. We're talking about years of time. Wow. It took him, what we're talking about here, it took him years to find. He didn't find these stone sarcophaguses with the mummies until like 5 years into his excavation, We're talking, this thing took years.
Got you. Let's see, we got a few comments here. Nicholas said, use some dowsing rods, get in the area and douse the area and see if. And now, of course, that would only say if there's precious metals still there. Now it's possible Brewer got all the real gold out of there, and the mummies are just there. Who knows, right?
Brewer, you listen to Brewer, you read Brewer's journal, and he felt like God was cursing him for taking this stuff out or thinking he could sell it and profit from him. And he would take it home, and his wife would sell it. And that made him mad. So he would bring everything that he found and left in this tomb, in this cave. Everything that he prized and he thought was valuable, and he didn't want his wife to get a hold of it and sell it, he brought it in there and left it in this place.
Wow.
So all that stuff, I believe, is still in there.
Okay.
But back to dowsing, I think there's something to dowsing, but I think the stuff that's been buried for a long time, you get ghost signals. And if you're off 5 feet, you just well be a mile because you have no idea. I don't, I believe there's ghost things that happen with the sun and the gravitational of the moon and the acid rains attacking the noble metals and the gases percolating up and I believe that it's not 100% accurate. It might get you in the area, but if you start digging, I don't know anybody that's found anything that's been buried for any length of time. I know people that have lost a ring and they bring a dowser in and they find it right now. Things that are recently buried. But the things that's been buried for a long period of time, I don't know anybody that can prove to me or verify to me that it's. And I think they're close. I think there's something to it, but I think it's just off enough where they're off a lither bit and they can dig a hole to China and they're going to miss it because it's 5 foot over here instead of where they're at.
Yeah, I don't think those ionizer technology. I haven't seen that work. I don't care if it's a $30,000 machine or a $2,000 machine. The ones that talk about it could detect gold. The handheld guys that you do. Sorry, I pretty much think that might be BS. Even if I've got some friends that sell them, but
I think the same thing. I think that they will get you close, but I think because of the gravitational pull and that moving the ions and drifting off, that it's off a little bit. And sometimes I think they can drift off as much as 100 yards. And like I say, if you're 5 foot off and you don't know it, you just will be a mile because you don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I know for a fact that dowsing, whether dowsing rods or my uncle Paul was a master at dowsing as well. He would use a bamboo stick because it was generally not of the area that we'd be in, and he could put things on the end of it. But you're right. Still, even though you're getting hit, you're getting the location. You even being off by 12 inches, you can completely.
If you're not digging a big enough hole,
target.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you're not digging a big enough hole, yeah.
Yeah. Anyone who's done any basic metal detecting knows that, it's not exact, depending on how the ground is.
So the great thing, is if you use the dowsing rods, couple it with metal detectors, ground penetrating radar, and things like that, and go from there. That's the way to go.
That's the way to go. There's a few more questions here. Joaquin Murrieta has some treasure in these hills. And so that's Joseph Trujillo, and I know he's from the Bay. It's my bud from the Bay Area. And yeah, no doubt, man, the Fremont Hills, the out here in the Bay Area.
There was mystery glyphs there in the Fremont Hills, and there was a Catholic nun there at that Catholic school or whatever it was, man. And she documented all that in the 50s of those mystery glyphs, those walls that run all across the Bay Area. And there was some spectacular things went on there in the Bay Area. Yeah.
And as far as I know, nobody has actually done any real research around there. Now, I imagine, no one should just go grab picks and shovels and go up there and start digging, because I believe it is on the parks, probably East Bay Parks, if I'm not mistaken. But it's amazing. So there's a lot of stuff that, and plus, you come right into the bay. So even whether it be pirates or Spanish ships, they can come right into the bay and just poop. Come right in that area, and then they could just unload their stuff and take it up to the hills and bury it.
It's an interesting area. I think there was something anciently went on there. Yeah. Yeah. Something interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. They need some more investigating. We'll have to put a team together, man, and finally, find some answers to that mystery. Nicholas says the government does not want this stuff out there. Well, I'm even trying to stop saying the government's an easy way to say the government, but it's really got to be factions, within the government or certain, agencies within the government. So we could say the government, but it's not like the whole. It's not like our congressmen and our senators and these guys are having any part of hiding it from us. I think it's that bureaucracy that exists that is working hard at keeping things away from the public. Nicholas also says, was Brewer a Mormon? Do you know?
He was what they called a Jack Mormon. Means he was in a Mormon community. He was a Mormon, but he wasn't active, but
Okay. So the answer is yes, he was Mormon, but the brothers and sisters didn't fully say he was practicing properly. So you've met. I've got some questions that I prepared. I didn't send to you, but I wrote down. So you've Smithsonian as a branch of the government. Yes, it is, Nicholas. We spoke about the Smithsonian earlier. I don't know if you caught that, but yes. And and Terry, I noticed. Now, don't beat me up for saying this. I noticed that you make it clear that you're not beating up any archaeologist or any of the institutions. I kind of see you kind of in a way making it clear that you don't think that they may be up to nefarious things, right?
I think that they've been taught and they know that if they go against mainstream, their credentials are toast. They're going to get scrutinized. They're going to ruin their careers. And so, they will go out of their way to overlook or not record or not do anything that is out of place artifacts,
Right.
And to be fair to them, though, there is a lot of fraud. So to be
Yes.
fair, so they just categorize it as all fraud and not even look for it. Not even try to see if it's real or if it's fraud. They just say it's a fraud, and if they don't, if just like the cocaine mummies, that scientist that says, hey, wait a minute, man, this is cocaine or there's tobacco here, and no, it wasn't dropped by somebody handling it, it wasn't put here, this was in the cloth, this was, they went after them, man. They tried to ruin their lives, and I think a lot of that's happening. And I noticed that with Professor Jones. When I was working with him, he not only was he a scientist, but he was also an archaeometrist, the ancient study of artifacts and stuff. And he was helping us. He's the one that helped us do the carbon dating and all that. When he came out, the Building 7, man, it was an inside job. I got the scientific proof right here. The science is science. You can't refute that, Well, now all of a sudden, man, the government come in, or all these other scientists that says he's a quack. It's not true. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He did know what he was talking about. He had, people don't know that we had a forum called the Ancient Lost Treasures, and underneath that forum it was hidden that you couldn't get to. You had to be invited to it. It was by scholars only, and it was the scholars for 9/11 Truth, and they was going through their research. These wasn't just everyday Joes like me. These guys was scientists. They was engineers. They was saying, yeah, this is good, solid data. Yeah, this was brought down. Building 7 was brought down by a controlled demolition. But you had all the outside people saying, no, man, you're a quack. And they ostracized, they crucified him. They got him kicked out of his job. They lost his credibility for going what was truth. Now, slowly, the truth's coming out. And, well, yeah, maybe, this stuff he was saying is true. But back then, they crucified him. They had all these other scientists came saying he's a quack, and that's what they would do to these scientists, these archaeologists. I don't think it's as bad as it was, but I still think it goes on some. It went on big time, even 10 years ago, it went on big time, and farther than that, it really went on. I don't think it's as bad as it is now, but it still goes on. And these guys seen what happened to these people that went against mainstream, the norm. They seen what happens, and so when they see something that's out of place, they'll run and turn the other way. They pretend
Right.
they never seen it because they don't want to put their name nothing to it. They don't want to take a chance or I've ruined their credibility, they ruin their their reputation, ruining their livelihood.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I respect Dr. Jones so much already before, his 9/11 stuff. I mean, I think he's prolific in so many of the things that he does, and his expertise and his brilliance. And yeah, I thought it was just a shame. He stood on truth. He made a decision. He's I'm sure at some point someone said to him, "Hey man, this is probably a subject you shouldn't be out there talking about."
I
But
said that to him. Before he presented it to his peers, he presented it to me and White Eagle. He wanted to know what we thought, so he gave me and White Eagle his presentation that he was going to present to his peers. And I told him, both me and White Eagle told him, we says, "Ben, they'll crucify you." And he says, "Terry, man, I can't not tell the truth. Science is science. The truth is the truth. I can't not tell the truth." And he went to his peers, and his peers, there at BYU says, "Hey, yeah, you got some great science there. Yeah, go for it." And then he went to the news with it, man, and then they crucified him. They brought in experts to say that he was a quack.
And because of the massive cover-up, and unfortunately for me, and we know a lot more today than we knew then, but he was going off science. He wasn't going off conspiracy theories. He was going off the science of thermite and what it does and how the buildings came down. And like I said, I was like, I knew what was going to happen because, the hope is, of course, that someone like that comes out with the science, that other scientists would back him up. But they did what they.
Yeah, one of the things was NIST said, there was no thermite, there was no controlled demolition, and a reporter and Professor Jones told the reporter, ask him, did they look? And so the reporter asked NIST, "Man, did you look for thermite?" "Well, no, we didn't look. Why would we look when we know it's not there? So why would we even look?"
Yeah, right. Goofy. Yeah, he's. Have you been in contact with? I like to always say Dr. Jones.
I haven't talked to him for a year or two now. But
okay. Yeah. He like I said, I really respect him. Previous to all that, but even more after that, he knew what he was doing, and he stood for truth. I hope. I hope he's doing well, and I hope that things change, man. I hope things change because that was some BS. And we know now today they've got other footage of buildings falling after, no planes hitting it. And anyway, that's not what this show's about. But the point is I totally understand.
The point was that's what they will do to you if you go against what they want the narrative to be. And who they are, I don't know. I don't know who they are.
Yeah, but they have the power to straight up remove your butt from your position. It doesn't matter who you are, and so that is sad that that they work that hard to discredit people, good people. There are some crazy people out there. Well, who knows? Maybe we think they're crazy and they end up being right, but but Dr. Jones wasn't one of them, man. He wasn't one of them. Let's see. Was Brewer more? Yeah, Smithsonian is a branch of the government. Yeah, we are aware of that. All right, so you interview so many people. You've interviewed so many people. You've heard so many stories from different treasure hunters, different explorers. Could you share with me one that just blew your mind or still has you really questioning or wondering about today? One, maybe ones that we haven't talked about yet.
there's several that really stand out, and several that I can't talk about. But one that I'll mention: a guy broke into a lava tube tunnel system, and he um, he found he found some giants in crystal coffins, and he said that they looked like they were just sleeping.
They just might have been.
He said they looked, they didn't look, like they'd been dead or anything. They looked like they, and it freaked him out, and some things happened, but I think he's telling the truth, and that is something that really always fascinated me. And there's a few other stories, that I would love to figure out more too, but I don't know.
Well, I'm curious about that, and I'm gonna say I'll just say, an area that has been an highly active place for me and my family.
Mm-hmm.
Is this place not too far from where that we operate, or is this something totally different?
Yeah, this is something totally different.
All right,
this is a different area. Long ways away.
Because there's some other lava tubes not too far from us that have a bunch of interesting things too that I'm not at liberty to talk about. But okay, cool.
Long ways away from there.
Okay,
not even in the same state. A lot of states away.
Okay, well, but it's still lava tubes and stuff. So interesting to know. Since you can't talk about that one, are there any other ones? Any other ones that like stand out to you, or I don't know. Just you could even share something. One from just really is awesome. Period. Awesome that we haven't heard about.
I've heard a lot of stories, and if you trigger something that reminds me of these stories, then other than that, man, they're buried deep back in there. That's why I started recording everything when I started tape recording people in the 80s. Is because I couldn't remember their stories, and even if I could, there's no way I could tell their stories like they did.
Right.
So in the 80s, I started tape recording people, and I have all these tape recordings of, a lot of them are pretty tough to hear, and whatnot. They're terrible quality, but, I got them preserved. Even myself, every now and again, I would write in a journal, not very often, but every now and again, I would write something down, and I go back through and read that, and I think, wow, I didn't even remember that. I'm glad I wrote that down. And I'm thinking, what else don't I remember? I wish I wrote everything down, So keep a journal. Right.
Yep. Keep a journal. I forgot to ask this question that Aaron had asked earlier. And Aaron, if you're still with us, forgive me for taking so long to get to it. She wants to know if you had any thoughts on Hoover Dam and its symbology.
I don't really know anything about the symbology or other than what you said earlier. That there were some ancient cities that was covered up by that's Lake Mead, right? Hoover Dam.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I could.
So there were some ancient civilizations that were covered up, by that Hoover Dam, and I've had a lot of people saying, I don't know if it's true or not, but anytime there was some significant archaeological things, they either built a dam and flooded them, or they made them national parks, or made them wilderness study areas, or made them, geological study areas, and keep the people out of them. Is that true or not? I don't know, but it is true that Lake Mead covered up some ancient civilizations.
Yeah, and she might be talking about some of the symbolism. I think there's a bunch of symbols, signs, and symbols, all around the dam, probably in the esoteric.
I don't know anything about that stuff.
Basically, esoteric symbols and meanings about the dam. I believe if she's still with us, maybe she can clarify because I believe they've got some winged figures, maybe, and other things that are, yeah. So, okay,
Yeah,
we don't know.
I don't know anything about that.
All right. Kirk says, "Good old Dinosaur Lake." Brandon Fugel, owner of Skinwalker Ranch, posted on X a serpentine type animal swimming, but must have been 40 feet long. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, yeah. He knew about Dinosaur Lake, and I won't say how or why. But so he knew to keep an eye on that area, and when they found, they was flying over it with the helicopter and seen that, and they gave it to some experts, and it didn't fit any known thing that they know of today, and the original story of that came from Wob and Wansitz, who relayed it to June Bleich, that he was hiking around and got into this lake, and he seen some Spanish boxes that supposedly had gold bars in it, and the lake was so clear that he tried to touch them. They looked like they was pretty close, but they wasn't. They was pretty deep. But he was going to get in there, and he seen this shadow figure thing coming towards him, and it kind of freaked him out. And so he just sat there and watched. And then he says it swam to the other side of the lake and got up, and he says it was a dinosaur. I don't know if it was like a Loch Ness monster type dinosaur, but he says there was two of them, a baby and a mother. And he says he went over there after they left. He went over there and he found a skull of another one there. And it swam. He watched it swim into the cliffs and just kind of disappear, like there was an underground tunnel there that led maybe to someplace else. I don't know, but that's Dino Lake, and the story of Dino Lake is that. And Brandon did fly over, and they did witness this thing swimming that didn't fit what we know of anything living today.
And that's in Utah?
That's in Utah in the Uinta Mountains. Yep.
Okay, that's not Moon Lake. From what I understand, Moon Lake as well.
So the last sighting in Moon Lake was in 1965, I believe. There was this dinosaur-looking Loch Ness monster type thing. Tried to capsize a boat and not let it come to shore. And but the Indians back from way back when were so terrified that this lake and of this monster thing that they would not even go there. This Lake Moon Lake was taboo to them. They was terrified of this lake because of this Loch Ness monster type looking thing. And who knows, is there a tunnel that goes from this thing up to Dino Lake to up in Uinta? Is it the same monster? Is it the same? I don't know.
Yeah, great possibility. And to me, it's not too far-fetched for some of these, these creatures, call them dinosaurs or dragons or whatever we want to call them. But to me, it's not impossible or unreasonable that some of these still exist. If they were supposedly wiped out by meteors or ice age or great floods, it doesn't mean that some didn't survive, especially if they're waterborne creatures. They could just be in the water and have survived that. And we have enough sightings to where, I don't really think we can 100% say it's BS. I think we've got too many sightings at a few special places that lend itself to the great possibility that they still exist. And maybe I'll use the word again, maybe our government even knows it, but it's like, yeah, we're not going to go pull a dinosaur out the lake. One of the things we talked about earlier is that, just admitting that some of these things are real and exist, whether that be giants, Bigfoot, ancient treasures or ancient artifacts, certain ones, especially from other continents, other empires, it just messes up everything that they've been teaching for so long, the history books, and opens a can of worms at so many different levels that, on one hand, I totally get it. I totally get it. I don't think it's right, but I can understand, their thinking about that stuff. Well, that's interesting. Here's Aaron has rung in. There's a zodiac wheel And apparently they want it to document the time in history, astrologically, when the dam was built for future visitors. Yes, the winged figures are creepy. So yeah, that's what she was talking about. She was speaking about the symbolism that's all throughout the dam area. That that she was wondering if you had any info from anyone.
Yeah, I've never heard of that, and I don't know anything about it. I've been to the Hoover Dam tour several times, but I don't remember ever seeing anything like that or never heard anything about that. So I'm the wrong one to ask about that.
All right, and I've got someone asking me, an anonymous saying, "Is Terry Carter a 33rd degree Mason?"
No, I'm not even any Mason. But man, I'd like to know their secrets.
We're open to honorary 33rd degrees if you'll open up your ancient records and share them with us. So community, once again, you talk to so many people, you're friends with so many people, you've captured so many treasure hunters and explorers stories. What are some of the takeaways that you would share with any new up and coming treasure hunters or explorers? Like what is some basic advice from Terry Carter that you would give to anybody who is interested in going out and investigating, researching, and looking for lost treasure?
Talk to the old timers. Go out of your way to talk to they've seen things. It's not everybody. When I was growing up, everybody went out deer hunting, elk hunting. Everybody beat the bush, was out in the mountains hiking around. It's not as hunting isn't as prevalent as it used to be. But them guys seen some things. They were off the beaten path. They weren't walking the roads or driving the roads. They was walking the hills, and they seen things that didn't really mean anything to them. But if you pick their brain and ask them, what'd you see and where and all that, and visit these old timers and ask them, and you find one that has a story to tell. Ask them questions and tape record them. Tape recorded their stories. Go visit some of these old these museums in some of these old towns, and they have some great, interesting things and some great stories there, and they can lead you to some of the old timers that's got some great stories. And that's that's how I've found a few things on my own, but the most of the stuff I know is from talking to the old timers.
Yeah, and we're losing more and more of the old timers, man.
Every time one of them old timers passes away, a wealth of knowledge is lost. A wealth of knowledge is lost. And I know so many people that I knew that I wished I would have got their stories, and I didn't, because they had great stories. They had great information, and I didn't get it. And I regret it.
Man. Well, you're doing a heavens of a job, though. You're doing a heavens of a job, man. You've got a massive catalog of people's stories. Ethics, really quick. I want to talk about ethics and at least bringing up because, and you already proven that you have, ethics, and you're not tearing into places. You've even admitted, going out looking for Brewer's Cave. You think you found it, but you're not tearing into it. You're not even secretly doing it. You're publicly admitting, hey, I believe I found it. But I'm not allowed to investigate any further than I have. And so how do you feel, about other treasure hunters who kind of disregard some of those rules? Or, what is your, what is your stance on?
If they, there's been some treasure hunters that's gone in and destroyed old smelters and things because they thought they'd find gold and stuffs in there. They just destroyed history. There's not going to be enough gold in a smelter to really make it worth your while to destroy history like that. And so I think, man, if you find a cave that you got to dig out and to see what's in there, but if there's anything Native American in there or something, man, leave it alone. We don't need to. They've been
robbed and
examined.
pillaged.
They've been robbed and pillaged, but they've been studied, examined enough that there's not anything more we can learn about it, and I believe that leave their stuff there. But if it's a giant, if there's ancient records, that needs to be not robbed and pillaged. It needs to be the professionals brought in, because if I found something like that, who am I? I'm just Terry Carter, an electrician. I'm nobody. I have no credentials. I have nothing. Anything I say and do is going to be worth zero evidence, zero proof, zero validity to the scholarly community. The professionals do need to be brought in, but video it and document the heck out of it, so they can't hide it and destroy,
Right.
So,
right. And I agree with you. First of all, I disagree that you have no validity and that you're not someone important to bring things. I believe that you are. And my grandfather used to always say, and this is no disrespect to archaeologists, it's no disrespect to the system, but he spoke truth, and he said that he has found more things than most archaeologists. And he is also, believes that about others, that, just because we don't have a degree doesn't mean that our voice and our discoveries are valueless. Now, that may be how academia responds a lot of the times, because you're right. There are people who are just straight up destroying stuff. But I don't buy into that Terry Carter, who's got 40 years or however many years of research and discoveries and knowledge, that if you were to come and share with people that something was found and discovered, I know I'd listen to you, and I know others would too. And I think your voice has weight, and I hear what you're saying, though. I understand that you're saying, hey, I'm not, but
the majority of things that the archaeologists are digging and excavated has been found by somebody like me and you, and turned it over to them.
Right.
They haven't gone out and found it. It's been shared with them by somebody else. And sometimes, I know a few cases where they've taken the credit for finding it when they didn't. Somebody else found it and showed them and shared it where it was at,
Yeah.
And so any artifact that this is me thinking, any artifact that's an ancient artifact, let's take a gold artifact for example, a gold statue. You found that, man. Do I think you should melt that down, sell it? Heck no, man, because that's a priceless, irreplaceable artifact. Now, if it's a Spanish gold bar with just a gold bar, man, my thinking, have at it. The government ain't gonna like that, but have at it.
Melt it, man, melt it.
But an artifact that's made, not a bar, but it's don't destroy history. Don't destroy, the old cairns, the smelters, don't destroy that stuff.
No, I agree with you, man. And I think, what you're saying, and I heard you say it, and I would like to reiterate it, is videotape it. Stream it live even, please, because there's always a possibility that some agency will come in and want to hide it, especially if it's groundbreaking, history-shattering type of discovery. So, document it, videotape it, stream it live. Have a plan in place to get some major news networks to show up and bring it to the world so it can't be hidden from us. But I agree, do not. I've heard stories, man. I don't know if they're true or not, but I've heard stories of people saying they found ancient artifacts and that they melted them all. That's disgusting. And I will say this, that call it a curse, call it a protection, or call it karma, whatever you want to say. But those types of discoveries are meant for the world. They're not meant for you as an individual anyway. So, Uncle Paul used to always say, if you got a little greed in your heart and you think you're coming out with us to go do something, not only will you get yourself killed, but you could get us killed. And, it's just not right, period. So the other thing I like to say, I don't know how you feel about this, but I can't stand it when people carve their names into the walls, especially of these ancient sites. I don't, I understand that some of them are youngsters and they don't get it. They're out there hanging out, drinking a beer in a cave, and they're carving their names. But it bothers me so much because there's so many ancient things there for us, right? Because a lot of the oral history that's passed down was also written in stone. And so there's so many records and so many petroglyphs and, like I said earlier, pictorials and petroglyphs and pictographs that they get ruined. They get ruined because they just
if they're carving their name in an ancient pictoglyph site, 100%. I agree with that. If they're shooting at them with guns, 100%, then they ought to have their butts kicked. 100%, because that's destroying priceless history. But to take that a step farther, I agree with that 100%. But 1,000 years ago, 500 years ago, even it's cool to see some of these pioneers in the 1800s. You find where they carved their name in that, and that's pretty cool to see. So if you find a panel that there's nothing on there, and you carve your name, 1,000 years from now, somebody's going to look at that and say, wow, that's pretty cool. I found this, and same, the whole thing of pack it in and pack it out. I agree with that to a point, because you don't want to leave all your trash in there. But guess what? Yesterday's trash is today's treasure.
Bury it.
The trash that the Indians had, now is priceless, cool things to us. I look at that and they're going to say, people are going to go into the mountains 1,000 years from now and say, man, we got all this ancient stuff, and then civilization must have disappeared because we got nothing from 1,000 years till now, because they must have not allowed them to come into the mountains, because we don't find nothing from them. So I agree with it to a point, but some point, man, I think, man, it's cool to leave something for our people for 1,000 years from now, But definitely do not destroy anything or put in, another panel, put your initials in another panel that was already there 1,000 years,
Right. Find yourself a nice, clean palette where nothing exists, and go ahead and write your name. But I've been to places, man, where there's just hundreds. It's like graffiti. It's like if they spray paint it, all over the place. And to me, it's just blows my mind. But, they just didn't have that connection. They don't have that connection to understand. I think it's a federal offense now anyway. If anyone... And they've been catching people. Yeah, and they've been catching some people. I know in the Four Corners area, there's been a few people who've defaced some petroglyphs, man, and I'm pretty sure they're in some big trouble.
That's a shame. They've destroyed history that's irreplaceable.
Yeah. Nicholas said, "We are so lucky to have both of you guys. Thank you."
Hey, you're lucky to have Dan, man, because I look up to Dan. I met Dan. Man, it was clear in the early 2000s, Dan.
Over 20 years ago.
Yeah, and I've always tried to keep track of you because you're always doing something pretty cool.
Yeah, well, thank you, man, and right back at you. I'm honored to know you and appreciate our friendship, and it's growing. Our friendship's growing, and I appreciate that. Nicholas also says, would you take the millions offered by the Smithsonian to shut up if you did find something? That question is for you. I don't want to answer that. No. Man, I've already got millions, Nicholas. I wouldn't take crap from the Smithsonian.
Man, that'd be tough. No, I think people need to know the truth, what's out there, whatever the truth is. Whatever it is, people deserve to know the truth.
Yes. So the answer is no.
No, but that would be tough.
Yeah, I've got plans in place for discoveries that I won't even let it get that far. The national press is going to be streaming live, whether we have a Starlink, because now we got Starlink satellite. We can be way out in the boonies. I don't care where we are, and we can broadcast live so that nobody can stop our discoveries from being brought to the public. But you got to be prepared. You got to be ready. You got to have the tech ready to do it,
Well, that is one of the reasons I built my YouTube channel, is just in case something like that happened. I had an outlet to get it to. If you don't have an outlet to get it to, it's easy to squash you. And
Yep.
so that is one of the reasons. And it was strictly for Brewer's Cave. I thought, I was going to be able to get in and prove and find something, and it's just not happened. But you never know. So,
well, it's happened, but you just aren't legally allowed to excavate it. If you found candles and if you found all of the things that he's written in his diary, and you're finding that there, and finding the shaft above, it sounds like you've got it, brother. It sounds like you are there.
I think in my mind I found it, but until it's broken and found, it's just me thinking that.
Well, but you could have found its cousins. This could be the cousins. The same. They got the same engineer.
So if I believe Brewer's Cave is real, and I believe it's real, then why wouldn't there be more in the same valley? Why wouldn't there be more? And Brewer said that. He took a long time. He found a map that showed 33 locations scattered around the western United States, and 7 other locations there in the Sanpete Valley is what he figured. And why wouldn't there be? Why would there only be just one burial?
Right. Yeah, and there's way more. So many people don't really think about it, but the American Southwest has got so much land still. Remember how we were talking about if you just dig 12 inches away from your target, you'll never find it. We've got an entire Southwest that really still today has not been explored. And there's so much stuff to find. I love to use the Nag Hammadi text, the Dead Sea Scrolls, they call them. I love to use that as an example. Those Red Rock Mountains or whatever, where they found them in the Middle East, is so similar to Utah, so similar to the Four Corners area. And those things were just discovered in the 50s. They're just discovering things in Egypt still today. You would think that for, all that has been discovered in Egypt, you would think that, well, there's nothing new. There's something new every day. It's just not broadcast on television. And even the things that are broadcast aren't probably the fantastic, amazing things that we would love to know about. And there's no way that those ancient records, statues, all of that stuff, it's so much still to find, so much still being discovered. So basically, y'all haven't seen nothing yet. That's what I'm putting out there. Whether it be me, whether it be Terry, whether it be me and Terry, or whether it be you who's listening today, or a family member, there is still amazing things to be discovered here in the Americas. And hope to be a part of it, but hopefully it's not hidden. So remember, Starlink, get your Starlink so you can broadcast live. Nicholas says, Kurt says, I think he was talking when we said bury your stuff, when you were saying, hey, there's nothing left behind. And I said, bury all your stuff. Kurt says, great idea. All my junk mail will be buried. Nicholas says, love you guys. Well, we love you back, Nicholas. And
Nicholas, thank you.
Yeah, love everyone who's participating. Unsolved mysteries. So, you're an hour ahead of me, so I don't want to take up too much more of your time, even though I'm going to take up a little more of your time.
I'm in Nevada, so I'm the same time as you right now.
Oh, okay. So it's 9:17 for you right now? Okay. Yep. Well, unsolved mysteries. Is there still a particular mystery or legend that you're still eager to explore or solve, minus the Brewer's Cave that we talked about?
There is a lot. I would have to think about it, but the stone bear. I would like to know more about the Willie Doffett and Buster Ward story in the Caballo Mountains, the Doc Noss story in the
New Mexico.
yeah, in the um, can't think of the name of the mountain. White Sands Missile Range. Can't think of the mountains. There's you know I'd have to think about it, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff. If I had the time and the money, there's a lot of things that I would love to be exploring and tracking down and researching and that. But I'm limited by time and money.
Yeah, yeah, and a lot of people don't know it is not it is not cheap
No,
to even try to do what we do while still maintaining working and everything else. So it in no way is this hobby or is this job, depending on how you look at it, easy. It's not easy, and it's not cheap.
there's so much stuff out there. I hear so many stories, and I would like to track it down and check it out farther. But there's just not enough time and not enough money and not enough. There. I'd have to think about it. I ought to keep a list of it because there is so much stuff out there that it's
Right.
there's just so much stuff.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know.
Our lifetimes could be spent just visiting the things that we know, let alone tracking down the rumors or information of other locations, including my grandfather's stuff and all the places that I have to discover, all the stories that you're a keeper of yourself. There's so much to reason. It would be awesome if somebody watching has got the money and wants to fund Terry and I and and you can come along too, obviously, and fund us on some of these, man. There's gotta be some rich friends out there who are looking for tax write-offs, okay? And Terry and I are the perfect people to help fund for some of these expeditions. I think that would be awesome. And maybe one day, maybe I'm talking crazy, but maybe a few of us need to get together and create some kind of campaign and say, hey, we're gonna go research this, and we're looking to raise this much to go do it and document the whole entire thing. And I don't know.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Because Nicholas, I don't actually have millions and millions, like I said earlier, at least not liquid cash. Okay. So if I did, I'd be funding me and Terry going. It's hard enough to fund the projects that I have to finish, let alone the ones we haven't even started to explore further.
You're 100% right. It is not cheap, and basically, I do it out of love for history, love for exploring, and love to find out the histories of the mysteries of what went on. And I have my YouTube channel. It don't pay nothing. It don't, I lose money on my YouTube channel. If I went to work instead, I'd make more money. I'd make a little bit, but it ain't enough to even be worth it. I could see if you had millions of subscribers, then
Right.
I could see maybe it could be worth it. But it's tough, to put together a YouTube channel by yourself and film stuff and edit stuff and put it on, and then also trying to get out there, and it ain't easy. It takes up a lot of time, and the time you put into it, it definitely isn't worth it. And the only thing that makes it worth it to me is it's a great way to meet people, to hear more stories, and to, that's what is worth it.
Yeah.
The worth is to meet the people that you get to meet, the things that you get to see because of it, the stories you get to hear because of it. That 100% makes it worth it. All the worth it that makes it worth it. Monetarily, it ain't worth it.
No, we're not getting paid. We are not getting paid for this. That is a fact. And you are not lying. A lot of people may not know. I mean, I think you're over 100,000 subscribers now.
100,000, and it don't pay enough there's no way I could even think about just living off YouTube.
Yeah.
Ain't no way.
And that's an amazing feat. A lot of people may not understand. That is, congratulations, applause, because that's not easy to achieve. And you're right. It's still, unless, I hear of people making crazy money, these guys that got millions of followers and they're monetizing. But there's no doubt that you're doing this for the love of what you do. And it's the same with me. If I didn't love it and have a passion for it, we surely aren't making any
It ain't
money.
worth it.
No,
ain't
hell
worth
no. No, it costs a lot of money to, even do what we're doing. Just I'm paying $40 a month for this software to stream. I'm, and let alone all the work that we do. So I thank you, man. I thank you for putting in all that work, because you're bringing so many people's stories and so much history to people that would never have an opportunity to hear it or see it or learn about it if it wasn't for you, dude. So
thank you.
Yeah, we're gonna have to, you already do it, I guess, at Moon Lake, but anyone watching who's associated with Moon Lake, even though I know you're one of the main players, Terry Carter, there needs to be an award program. There needs to be Hall of Fame, man. And you need to be the first inductee into the Treasure Hunters Hall of Fame for supporting all the other treasure hunters. And because you really did, I've already told you, if people don't know, the lost gold of the Aztecs, the reason why my family had that opportunity was because of Terry Carter. It doesn't take away from all that my family has done, my grandfather and uncles and even myself, but it took Terry Carter who told the production company that, no, you want to talk to Dan Dillman and you want to talk to his family because they're the ones with the story. So, dude, you're so important to me, and I want to get emotional.
I introduced him to you, but you got the job. You wouldn't have got it if you wasn't who you was.
I understand that, but there are many people. Let me, and I'm sure everyone listening understands this. There are many gatekeepers. There are many people in the music business, in the TV business, in any job, any corporate job. And there are people who don't want to see other people take a step up. They don't want to lend a hand. They don't want to even say, hey, check it out. I know this guy who's really talented at this, because they're only worried about themselves and what they can get. Dude, you are not that guy. That's the point I'm trying to get across to you. And you're so humble that you always say what you say, but listen, you mean a lot to me, my family, and the community. And I know everyone listening feels the same way, that you are uplifting others. And not everyone has that spirit, Terry, regardless of, we want to hope they do. Not everyone does. So I want to thank you again for.
Thank you. That means a lot coming from you. But the truth is I'm a fraud. I don't know that much. I just know a lot of great people, and you're one of them, Dan.
Well, fraud is not the word I would use, but well, I appreciate that too. But I'm humble as well to say that it's me who's blessed to know you. And if I'm a blessing to you, well, that's awesome. And actually,
you're a blessing to me.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll be doing some boots on the ground, investigating and working together soon.
That'd be cool. I'd like that. Yeah. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I'm hoping the universe lines that up for us to get out there and do some stuff. Is there anything that I haven't covered or asked? I'm sure there's tons of stuff, but is there anything that you would like to share or tell the community? Anything that we haven't covered?
Like I say, I know a lot of stories. I got a lot of stories. I know a lot of people, but I got to jog my memory on them. And so, man, right now, man, I think we're probably good. I appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate you. Not only were you already planned to be here, but several people said, get Terry Carter. I'm like, don't worry, he's on the list, man. I'm trying to get into a rhythm, trying to teach myself to listen more than talk. But I got a problem. I have to jump in and talk, but I hope I'm getting better and not interrupting so much. Chris Davis says Victoria Peak. That was the name we were looking for earlier.
Yeah. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, Aaron's Energy 313 says thank you both. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you for watching, Aaron.
Yeah. Joseph Trujillo says United Treasure Hunters nonprofit.
I like it.
Yes. Aaron's Energy 313 says God bless you both for sharing with us. Well, if you weren't here to participate and listen to us, we would have nothing to share. So thank you.
Amen.
Um, when is the next Moon Lake gathering? We could let folks know. Do we have a date? You have a date on that yet?
Yeah, we're just getting ready to start doing things with it. But August 14th, 15th, 16th, is that a Thursday, Friday, Saturday? August 14th, 15th, 16th.
Okay, cool. August 14th, 15th, 16th. Next week, I just had Robert Kreider just verified. He's going to be on with me next week.
Cool.
So I'm excited to have Robert on the show next week. Talk
Robert's
about
a smart guy. Robert's a smart guy.
He is super smart, man. He starts talking, breaking down this and that, and I'm just like, dude, I'll listen to you all day long. Break it down, brother. Break it down.
He's a smart guy.
Yeah, he's in there manipulating photos and he's doing quantum physics on the computer, man. No, no, he's awesome. Because of Moon Lake is how I got to meet Robert as well, and he's a good dude. Chris Davies as well, Kurt as well, who's ringing in here. A lot of good people in this community, and I only wish that my family, well, everything happens for a reason. I'm saying I wish we would have came out the woodworks or worked with other people. Everything is God's timing, the universe's timing. So it's what it's supposed to be. But my grandfather would have loved to be at Moon Lake, and my uncles would have loved to participate in things like this.
I'd love to got their stories from them. Yeah,
man. And I've got a lot of stuff, but still nothing like what we should have done, So it burns me up. It's like everything, especially my uncles. My grandfather passed away in 92, but no way that I expect that my uncles would have checked out, as soon as they have, right? It's not like they were super old or anything, but it is what it is. And but I'm keeping our end alive and going, and all these things that I do and I've done, it's to keep my grandfather and uncles, legacy, because they would love to be doing what I'm doing. I'm living their dream. And that's an honor, man. So, all right, well, I guess that's it. August 15th through 16th is what Kurt just said. He says, I think.
Well, it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 14th, 15th, 16th. I think that is in August.
Okay.
So we're going to add a date to it because we got a killer deal on the event center. Man, it'll hold 2,000 people in the outdoor part. Then it's got some inside part. Man, this is just going to be spectacular.
Wow, that is awesome.
Big screens, man. The presenters like yourself can do a great presentation. People will be able to see their slide drag. Great.
Yep. No raining and no sunshine.
No
blinding the display.
No, it's going to be great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And the great thing about this is, there's people that come from all over the country there, and it's a great place to meet people, and it's a lot of work putting it on. And I think we don't make a dime on this, Not one dime. I got to pay my gas bill to get there, my motel room, my food, everything, just like everybody else. I might be a little bit closer than some of the other people traveling, but we don't make not one dime. The purpose of this is to get to meet people, to hear stories, and we have. And last year I always think, man, it's a lot of work, and I don't know if I want to do it again. But last year. Last year, a lady came up to me and she says, Terry, I did what you said, and it was marvelous. And I says, what did I say? She says, if I seen 2 or 3 people standing around in a circle talking, just go up and eavesdrop and listen to what they said. She says, I heard the greatest stories. She says, I'll never miss another one of these. I didn't have to talk or nothing. I just stood and listened, and I heard the most fantastic stories ever. There's a lot of knowledge that comes to these, and you just got to stand around and listen, and man, there's a lot of knowledge there.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited. I'm excited to hear more about it. Excited to possibly participate.
You are. It was my job to ask you to come participate, so I'll have to fill you in more on that.
Okay, that sounds great, man. That sounds great. All right, well, I guess this is it for the night. I'm gonna let you get some rest. I've held you for 2.5 hours, man. 2.5 hours, and I can't thank you enough, brother.
I appreciate you. I appreciate your grandpa and your uncles and your family, and you sharing your research and your stuffs with us. And I'm glad I know you. And thanks for inviting me on.
You got it. Thanks, Terry. Don't forget about re-indigenizing minds. Roger is now alive and available. So,
okay.
Yeah. I mean, on one hand, the guy who doesn't want people to hear what he's got to say says, hey, man, he's giving up coordinates. Don't go telling the world. But you know what? He wants the message out there, and we have to respect, that he wants to get that out there, and he's holding on to his ancient, his ancestors' history, and it's pretty amazing stuff.
There's some other indigenous people, chiefs, that are coming out with their ancestors, and I think, man, they need to all get together. So, yeah.
Yep. Cool. All right. And what Aaron says, the struggle to listen is real, Dan. Yes, it is. I'm still working on it. I'm still working on trying to listen more than talk. It's a defect. Sometimes it's a good one, and sometimes it's not. All right, Terry. Thank you, brother. My wife tells me I'm not supposed to tell other guys I love them. She goes, that's not manly. She goes, that's not manly. Don't tell other guys you love them. I said, but it's not. It's a cosmic love. It's a spiritual love, dear. It's So I love you, man. I appreciate you.
I love you back, brother.
Thank you, and I'll see you and talk to you soon.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Terry. Yeah.
Hey,
all right. Bye-bye.
See you guys. Thank you for having me on.
And do-do.